If you're not very familiar with Illustrator, it's no big deal. Really, we're only going to use one or two tools here. And you can really do what we're about to do with a piece of paper, a whiteboard, or whatever. But for this, rather than film my whiteboard, I figured we just do this in Illustrator. So I'm going to go to File, New, and we're going to call this Website Sketch. You can really call it whatever you want to call it. We're going to choose, for number of artboards, just one, and basically that just gives us one canvas if you're thinking in terms of Photoshop. The size, we're going to go ahead and change the units to pixels, and we're going to make this let's say 1200 by 1080. This should be able to encompass our whole website here. Ignore that. In color mode, let's go ahead and go to RGB. It's not really necessary. RGB and 72 pixels per inch. And we'll say OK. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip over here to Photoshop, and with our layout open here, we're going to select our square marquee tool, and we're just going to kind of select this entire layout, and it doesn't need to be accurate or right in the middle. It's not important. This is really just for a reference. And we're going to copy this, but we need to copy all layers. We don't want to just copy the layer we're in here, which at this point is the buttons group. So to do that, you can either go to Edit, Copy Merged, or Control-Shift-C. And now let's come back over to Illustrator, that is, and we'll go ahead and paste, which is Control-V. And there we have it. Now what we're going to do, layers in Illustrator are a little different than Photoshop. Layers are actually kind of like groups themselves. We're going to call this layer the let's call it Layout Guide, and we're going to go over to our transparency panel, and we're going to turn the opacity down quite a bit, and that should be good, 16. And we're going to go ahead and lock this layer so we can't select anything, and we're going to make a new layer, and we'll call this layer divs. And what we're really just going to do is we're going to be using, I think, pretty much really just this rectangle tool. And let's go ahead and we'll make the fill transparent, and click on the stroke here, and we'll go ahead and make that black, and we'll come up and make the stroke point, and let's say 3, and that should be good. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of map out where we need to put divs, and this is going to help us when we go back into our HTML document to kind of just give us an idea of how we need to do the divs. This is honestly something that I don't do on all of my websites because I've done this so long that I can get a mental picture and kind of fly through it. But if you're just starting out, this is a really good idea, even if you're just sketching it out on paper. So let's just go and kind of get our basic divs that we are obvious. Our header, kind of content area. And then we have our buckets. All right. All right. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out what how we're going to contain these. For instance, we have this header div, but we're probably going to make this navigation here out of an unordered list that we'll tweak with CSS. And since we haven't really gone over that yet in detail, this may not make sense to you just yet, but we're gonna want to put a div here that kind of encompasses the navigation, and what we'll do is we'll end up floating that with CSS to set next to this logo image. The next thing we have is we have these buttons here, which I'm not positive how we're going to do this just yet. At the moment, let's just assume we're going to use divs. But you know, it's possible we might actually use a list. So we have these divs here. We're going to want to make a wrap div, which is another concept I don't believe we've totally touched on in the previous tutorials. And for that, I'm going to come over here to the stroke panel, and we're going to make a dashed line. We don't need to get too creative with the gaps and all that, but this is just the dashed line is going to represent a wrap. And the first wrap we're going to have is a wrap around the entire layout, and we would most likely call this the overall wrap or something like that. And what that's going to do is we're going to make this wrap probably something like 1024 pixels wide, and all these other divs are going to sit inside of it, and it's going to force everything to stay within the confines of this 1024 div. That might make sense a little bit later. The next wrap we're going to want, I just noticed we turned that into a dashed line. We don't want to do that. There we go. The next line we're going to make, or div we're going to make, is a wrap around these buckets. And I haven't yet decided how we're going to make these buckets totally. We have two options. We can do it all with divs that float next to each other, or we can do just a simple table with divs inside of it. Many people, web developers, would prefer to attempt to do it with divs, as we try to stay away from using tables these days for layout purposes other than just making a actual table, the data table. But you know, sometimes it's just the best option, or the easiest option. So either way, we will probably have a wrap around these, and we'd probably just call it bucket wrap or something. Likewise, we will probably have a wrap around these buttons in order to confine them to this size. So I'm going to go ahead and make this wrap around here. Now, it's not necessarily going to be outside of this, but just so you can see the line, we're going to keep it there. And that should do it. What we might do is select all these wraps and change the stroke to like red or something, and then maybe that'll help out with seeing it better. And maybe we'll come in here and select all of our other divs and make that maybe like a dark green or something. And let's go ahead to our layout. We'll go ahead and lock the divs and unlock the layout. And I'm actually going to bring the opacity down even more so we can just barely see it. There we go. And then this may look kind of confusing, but a trained eye would know exactly what we're going for here. What we're going to do most likely is this will be an image, this logo, maybe a PNG or maybe just a JPEG with a black background. That kind of depends on how versatile you want to get. If you think this header may change colors over time, then you should probably make it a PNG to save you the hassle. But we used a font for the nav. That's a common web font, Helvetica. So these will just be text links that we'll style with CSS, probably in an unordered list. The content area, the splash screen here, will probably just be one big background image, assuming we don't need it to scale downward. And these buckets, the header here, we may be able to get away with making that a just an H, like a heading tag. And these buttons will most likely just be an image, unless we decide we want to actually make the button text out of just plain text. But without spending, hours staring at this thing here, I just wanted to get you the idea of where we're going. And let's go ahead and save this. And we're going to save it in our site directory, and we're going to go into assets because we don't need to be uploading this Illustrator file. And we'll just go ahead and say save. And usually the default options are good. Might as well keep it PDF compatible. Say OK. Ultimately, if you did go ahead and do this in Illustrator instead of just sketching it out, probably not a bad idea just to print it, set it on your desk so you can use it as a reference. So we're just going to minimize this, and